welcome to Let's Talk About It. I am finally, it has been 3 weeks-ish, and I'm finally reunited via podcast with the lovely Vanessa Grimaldi.
It's been 3 weeks. What? It's been 3 weeks since we've been back?
I feel like it's been three. It will be 3 weeks when this episode comes out. We did record an episode while we were traveling in Bali, but it was a mess of an episode. And yes, honestly, I feel like
it got deleted, right?
Yes. I think I still have it, but we've saved you guys from that ridiculous recording. And instead, we have today's episode for you guys that we're going to do. But yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've been traveling, and I've got a bunch of questions from you guys, from you listeners, and
oh, that's right, because you posted something about it on Instagram.
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so we're gonna answer some of your guys' questions, and then just kind of like talk over some of our life lessons throughout our recent travels.
Let's get to it.
Fun stuff. So some of the beginning questions that you guys asked were just kind of like, what was our trip and what did it look like travel-wise? So this was beginning of September, and first I flew to New York, and then from New York we met in Toronto. And
girl, I totally forgot about the Toronto trip. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? It wasn't beginning of September. We left for Bali there's so many stories, you guys.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot.
I'll let you start, but I want to talk about how the story of when we were supposed to be leaving and then when the day. Okay, I'll talk about that one.
Yes. I don't know how much more put together this recording is going to be than our original one.
I feel like we're going off the deep end again, but let's give this one a shot.
Yeah, we're going to reel it in for you guys. So we started off. So there's really two big parts of this trip. The first was in Canada, and then the second was in Bali. So our trip in Canada, we met up in Toronto, and then we took a 3-hour bus ride north of Toronto to Camp Walden, which was in Bancroft, I think it was. It was like a small town.
Yeah, it's like halfway between Toronto and Montreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it was held at Camp Walden, which was a beautiful, beautiful campground.
Lovely. Yeah.
Amazing. And it was for a conference called Fireside. And we talked about this a little bit on Vanessa's podcast, Help I Suck at Dating. And
we did. We got into some details about Taylor.
Sure did. Sure did. That was one of the questions someone actually messaged me. I had a little bit of a romance at camp, and so talked about that on Vanessa's pod, and someone asked a question about like an update on that in the Instagram questions. But
will you be giving an update on that?
Maybe.
Okay.
But so the conference itself was focused on like business, and there were different angel investors and startups, and it was kind of like a little bit of a tech community, and was really like focused on like disconnecting from, the craziness of our everyday lives and like networking in a way that like allows for a lot of authenticity. And it was interesting because I've never been to camp. I don't know. Did you ever go to camp growing up?
No, that was my first. Actually, no. I went to gymnastics sleepaway camp for a week. And it was north of Quebec. It was a couple hours away. And that was my first time away. Because I don't know if you guys do this in the States, but in grade 6, we go to a sleepaway ski week.
No.
Yeah, we go, well, I mean, depending on where you're living. So I never went because I was in competitive gymnastics and I never really got a chance to to get away from all the practice. But anyway, over the summertime, I went to a sleepaway camp, and that was my first time away from my family. Mm-hmm. And I think I spoke about this with some of the founders of Fireside. It was so sad. My mom made my bed for me, and my bed smelled of her angel perfume, which she still wears to this day. And that was the first night I went to bed, and all I smelled was her perfume, and I bawled my eyes out. And it was the first time I was away from my family. Aww. It was a really big learning experience for me because I wasn't eating my grandmother's food or my mom's food. I was eating camp food. But the food at Fireside was amazing.
Yeah.
The chefs were amazing. They had vegetarian options. So it was my first time being away when I was in gymnastics camp. So this is actually my first time at an actual camp, in a cabin. At one point, my weather app said it was -5
Celsius.
at night. Celsius.
Yeah.
And it was cold. We slept with our toques on.
Which is a beanie.
Taylor had a snuggle buddy. I had my... I had a blanket and socks, and literally I slept with my jacket.
Yeah, and we had a sleeping bag.
And we didn't shower for like 2 days.
We didn't shower the entire time.
Yeah, 3 days? How long were we there for?
We were there for like 4 days.
It was too cold to get into the shower. I'm like, nah.
It was too cold to get
Baby wipes will do.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I don't think because we were kind of disconnected from social media, well, kind of.
Listen,
Vanessa.
I will get into it. I will get into it.
We'll talk about the Wi-Fi tent cabin. But I think we ended up sharing a little bit less about Fireside just because we were disconnected from our phones and we're really present with everything happening. Whereas like a lot of the questions that we got were about the Bali trip because we were able to share more about that. But to me, I found that camp, being something that an environment I had never been in before, that it was so like it was super emotional, and really I felt like, not that I wasn't an adult, but like I really felt like I got back in touch with like some of the playful energy within me. And even from the first night when we got there, we were like, "Are we gonna make friends? How do we make friends?"
Well, the thing is, when you're already going somewhere to a bar or a restaurant or something like camp and you're going with a friend, you have your support system with you, right? It's like a little, it's a comfort that you have with you. So you're not going to force yourself to go out there and actually interact as much as you may if you are on your own.
And I kept thinking about that too. I was like, what would I be doing right now if Vanessa didn't come with me? Like what would I be doing? I'd be so by myself.
But no, you'd be interacting more.
No, I totally would. But I also wouldn't change it because I loved sharing all of that with you.
It was so much fun. The whole experience was really, I found, as much as you say or think that I wasn't disconnecting, I did.
You did for you, yeah.
I did for me. But it was also, and I'll get into it. At that point while we were at camp, I liked someone. I was romantically interested in someone. Well, not romantically, just like I had a crush. Fine, I'll put it that way. No, it was
it's
like
romantic.
A crush, right?
Yeah, you had a crush.
I
you
had a crush
for
on someone, and it was right after like I met this person, and I was like, no, I'm not going to have Wi-Fi for 4 days. And Camp Fireside actually encouraged us not to use our phones because we were going to do stories for them and help promote them. But they're like, no, get off your phones, enjoy the experience, and really connect with the people that are here, which I loved. But of course, like I wanted to check in with my crush person, and I wanted to check in with my emails and my agent and my family. So there was that Wi-Fi cabin that I wanted to go to maybe like 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And I didn't stay long. I stayed maybe 15 minutes to like to
15
a half hour.
minutes, girl?
No, you know what, girl? I'm sorry, because the Wi-Fi connection sucked. So
so it was like at least an hour.
So I was there for maybe 20 minutes trying to connect to Wi-Fi. And then when I finally did, I was like, all right, let me get all my work done.
Yeah. See, I felt like the first day I kind of felt like that of like, oh, like I want to know like what's going on. And then once I kind of just like surrendered to like, everything will be okay. I'm going to be disconnected. I'm not going to respond to anything.
You got disconnected to that world because you were connected to someone else.
Yes, but even if that had not happened, I mean, that was really only like during the nighttime even.
No, it's also when you have a form of connection. This goes back to relationships all the time. Our conversations always go back to that. But when you have a form of connection with anyone, whether it's a platonic relationship or romantic relationship, it's exciting. Especially anything new is exciting. So it was exciting can I say that it was exciting for you to be like, oh, well, I'm going to bump into this person today because we're at this,
but it wasn't like we didn't go to like workshops together. Like we would see each other out at the different things because then we had both ended up wanting to be there. But I think for me, like, yes, I'm not going to say that wasn't a part of it. It definitely was. But even just the whole, like just being at the camp itself to me was just like, yeah, I don't want, like, I wanted to take pictures of everything, but I was also just like, I don't want to talk to anyone that's not here in this environment, like right now. And like I said, there were different workshops and like the keynote speeches and stuff were like literally around like campfires and by the lake. And
so much
it was
fun. We hung out until 7 a.m. in the morning, not drinking, not doing anything other than sitting around a campfire, singing songs with people who were playing the guitar with us. And then like, it was so magical because some people were like, I'm tired, I'm going off to bed. But as soon as those people left, a new like crowd of people came in and replaced them. And our group just kept growing.
Yeah. And so each night, I think there's something really special. And the first night, we did make a friend who then we ended up hanging out with most of the weekend. And after the kind of like normal gathering was done happening, we then rode around on a stolen golf cart and did like circles in the baseball field. And that was like so fun to do. Like that was really fun.
It was silly. It was silly and childish, but it was camp-like.
Yeah, super.
Camp-like behavior.
Yeah. The second night was also super fun. And then, I mean, my biggest takeaway from the second night was just kind of like that emotional connection that I found with someone. And it was like a bit romantic as well, like in a very different kind of way because, you know, you are kind of in this bubble of what camp is and like all the stars around. You can literally see the Milky Way galaxy. Like
I saw Jupiter, guys. Jupiter. It was
we
orange.
saw Jupiter. But I was very confused as to where the moon was. And I was like, do you guys not have the moon in Canada?
I didn't know that if you see stars, you don't see the moon.
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, it makes sense, but I was not expecting that. And then the third night, it was like the main night, and it was so special. Like in terms of feeling connected to like a girlfriend and being like connected to myself, like that would be up there in like my top 3 like experiences.
Is that when the keynote speaker? What's his name?
So Saul, one of the like co-owners of Camp Walden, gave the keynote that night, or actually was introducing the keynote, who was Peter Katz, who I'm going to have on the pod in a few episodes. He's a musician and gave a beautiful keynote. And
from Toronto. Oh, no, he's actually from Montreal. I take that back. He's from Montreal originally.
Yeah. And Saul started out, you know, with introduction and with giving this speech, and it was just, I don't even know what it was about it. Maybe you can speak more to it, but we, throughout the entire night of both speeches, were just, and I think maybe I had started first, and then I was just a mess the whole time, but we were both just like bawling our eyes out. Like,
it was a moving speech because it encompassed music. And he would give a part of his background and his story. And he was at one point a struggling artist, and kind of wanted to just give up on his career. Remember, he was like in the kitchen, and like kind of just like broke down on the floor and told his girlfriend, like, I can't do this.
Well, and I think he was like married and talked about his relationship a little bit.
Right. And that didn't work out. So that was like another trigger for me. I'm like, oh, well, my engagement didn't work out for me. And I think the words when he said, I just can't do this anymore, that's when it hit me.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes like we have these ideas of things that we want to do. And then sometimes you want to pursue, whether that's like a relationship or a career choice or whatever it is. And it's so easy to just be like, I'm not going to do this, or I can't do it. And I think we all kind of experience those emotions. So for me, it brought back different situations in my life, whether that was like career decisions or the ending of my engagement. Mm-hmm. And I just broke down into tears, and I'm like, I can so relate to that. And then he went off into singing a song, and I was just a mess. We were both, I was literally crawled up into a ball in your arms, like sobbing, rocking back and forth.
Yep. We both were. We were literally just holding each other and like shaking and like crying. And it was, to me, it felt like I don't even remember looking around at other people, but I'm sure other people were shedding tears as well. And even before Peter did his keynote, even when just Saul was talking about like what camp is and like what he wants everyone to take away from camp, and just kind of like the connectedness of it all, and of us like all just coming and just being who we are. Like, and now that for me was one of the really like just grounding parts of being there, was I didn't feel like anyone was like trying to be anything. And I think one of the reasons why I felt super emotional was because, I mean, within this community, like using the word emotional intelligence is like a normal thing that people would just say. And I think one of them had said it at some point during their speech, and like that kind of like triggered some emotion in me to be like, yeah, like this feels like I'm getting reconnected with a part of me that I haven't been connected with for so long, especially with everything from the show and how like that's changed both of our lives over the last 2 years, and just feeling like home in a weird way, like feeling at home with people who just cared about each other. And like we all kind of had different passions and different things we were working towards, different companies, different paths and backgrounds, but like we were all there to support each other. And that was just such a beautiful, emotional thing.
Genuinely want to get to know about each other.
Yeah. And so one of the things that Peter did, and I'm really excited to meet up with him when I go to Toronto and have him on an episode, and just introduce you guys to the wonderfulness that is Peter Katz. But he brought his friend out, and his friend
yes, the thank you cards.
Yes. And his whole mission is like expressing gratitude and feeling like we should really like make sure that we say thank you to the people that, you know, have touched us in some way, and to like he said that he throws thank you parties at his house, and I was like, that's so sweet. And the whole time he was talking about it, like we were just continuing to be super emotional. And then we had thank you cards, and so we wrote a card to a special person in our life that, you know, we wanted to express gratitude to. And I wrote mine to Colin, who was on a very early episode of the podcast, White Male Privilege. And the whole time I'm writing his card, I'm like sobbing. And I gave it to him just the other night when he was over, and, you know, continued to have a conversation about like why I'm thankful to have him in my life. And you could literally see like my teardrops on the card with my mascara on it.
Aww.
Yeah. And then who did you write yours to?
I wrote mine to my mom. I think it was a general card to my family, actually. Yeah. And how, I mean, my family has been through everything with me, and they're so supportive, and they're my biggest cheerleaders. So that first card was to them. And then the second card was a card that we were to write to ourselves. And
do you have your card?
I think I do. I think it's over here. I have to go find it. I have a card that actually someone that I met
at
Fireside wrote to me. Yeah. Elliot.
Aww.
And he wrote, Vanessa, it is new friends like you that make life and Fireside so enjoyable. I look forward to all the future chats about helping others in life.
He was very sweet.
Yeah, he was very sweet. And I have to find my card.
Yeah, so I want you to hopefully find your card. Sorry, we should have touched on this beforehand. But you then wrote me a card, and I wish that I had a second, like another blank card, because I wanted to write you one. And I mean, I still can, and it not be on.
I know they said take 2. I took 3.
Nice. Can I read your card that you wrote me?
Absolutely.
Okay. And it made me cry because it was just so sweet. You said, Tay, resilient. That's what you are. Authentic. It's what may scare people away. Loyal. That's why the real people stay. You've taught me so much about myself from day one. Our stories, paths, thought process, hearts are so in line with one another, and I am truly grateful to have you not only in my life, but for you to have impacted it. Thank you. Thank you for being you and for always allowing me to be me. Love you, Vanessa.
And it's so true. It is so true. I feel like, ow, I just elbowed myself right now. I just feel like you're one of those people that, and it's sad because we know if I meet people in the street, they're like, oh, you're friends with Taylor. How is she in real life? I'm like, she got a, fraction of like, the thing is that people don't realize when we're on the show, you see a fraction of a person's personality, and whatever fraction that is, it's exemplified and amplified to like another degree. So you're one of those people that, and I'm going to expand on this card, you're one of those people that you're able to have meaningful and thoughtful conversations and relationships with people. And that could actually scare some people away because some people are just used to nowadays texting or having, just having like, quote unquote friends
that it can feel like threatening when someone tries to like
that wants to get to know a little bit more about you. And I love that about you. And it's just like it's rare to find. It's rare to find someone that you can just be yourself around. And we spent quite a bit amount of time together from Fireside, then we went to Bali together, and that alone is a 26-hour flight trip to go to Bali and then another 26 hours to come back. And even while we were coming back, we're like, oh, should I come to Portland?
I was like, just come to Portland with me. I had to fly back into Portland, and I was just like,
and I went back to Montreal. But it was, whenever you travel that long or any form of travel or vacation with anyone, it's you make or break that friendship or relationship. Yeah. And we're both opinionated, strong-minded individuals. But I think why we get along so well is that we value our personal space. So I know that, if you need space to like do your own thing, I will give it to you because that means I'll get my own space as well. So I think that's important to find, whether that's in a friendship or in a partner, to have your own thing going on and then to connect when you've filled up your own, what's the expression? Cup or bucket to bucket, the bucket.
Piggy bank?
Piggy bank.
Emotional piggy
I think
bank?
it's also a bucket. I think you can
or
fill
it's
up
a cup,
bucket.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And you touched on one of the questions that someone asked us. They asked if we are in tune with when we want each other to have together time versus personal solo time. And I think we balance that really well, actually. But you were not able to find your thank you card that you wrote to yourself?
No, it has to be like in my pile of, I don't feel like going through my pile of paper right now because it's going to make way too much noise.
Yeah.
So
what would you say to yourself?
What would I say to myself? I think I was thanking myself for.
Do you want me to read mine? And then
read yours, and I think it'll bring back what I wrote to myself.
So they actually had, while we were all writing this in the, big group of us, they had someone come up and share their cards. And so for the first one, it was like, to another person in your life. And I had raised my hand for that, and someone else had gone up, and then it was like, oh, now you're going to write one for yourself. And then they were like, who wants to come up and share? And I was like, oh, well, I can't not raise my hand again. If I raised it for talking about other people, like I should still raise my hand, even if it's, thanking myself. So I raised my hand, and then I actually ended up going up and reading this one. And there's still, I can see my mascara tear marks on this card too. And I wonder if they were like videotaping it. So I'm going to see if they have footage of it. But I said, Taylor, thank you for being resilient and continuing on even when you didn't want to. Even when you didn't think you could. You're capable of so much, and I want you to believe that. You're enough. Thank you for experiencing your pain and for sharing it and using your support. You are okay. Love you, Taylor.
You are more than okay.
Yeah, I was like, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. And even when I don't feel like I'm okay, like I know I will be okay. And that's okay.
And you're always there to emotionally support and help others, which is amazing to have in a friendship.
Mm-hmm. And you too.
And well, I mean, like you'll and I was in New York City this weekend, and I met up with Jacqueline and Jenna, and Jacqueline was saying how she shared the same thoughts as I do about you. And she was like, it's so rare to find someone like Taylor who actually cares about you. She's like, she messaged me and randomly said, I love you. And I was like, yeah, that's Taylor. Like you're a thoughtful person.
Oh, I didn't know that she said that. That's so sweet.
Yeah. She's like that. She's like, I felt so connected to her. I'm like, yeah, well, you're a thoughtful person. And even when I landed in New York, you called to see like how I was doing. And, cause I was going through my own stuff. And it's moments like that where you realize like today's Canadian Thanksgiving, and I'm so thankful to have people like you in my life that genuinely care about my happiness and my mental well-being and my emotional well-being and physical well-being and me as a whole. So yeah, you are more than okay. You are amazing.
I'm doing great. Thank you. You're so sweet. Yep. I mean, I think like from that Fireside experience, I felt super, super close to you, and not knowing, how we were going to do traveling together for such a long time. But I mean, looking back, like you were so thoughtful and so caring towards me in so many ways. Like even, I mean, I won't get full into detail about this story at camp, even though it's one of my favorite stories of you. But you were worried. So I did my first live podcast.
I was like, wait, where is she going with this? Now I know.
I did my first live podcast at camp, and Vanessa was having some personal issues, but was so concerned about being late to the recording. And I didn't even think about it. And I was like, yeah, like she'll be here when she gets here, And the fact that, like, first of all, you had a very reasonable excuse for being a little late. But just the fact that, like, the way you even described it was like you were so concerned, and like you didn't want me to think that you were being a bad friend, and that you really wanted to be there on time, and that you were really proud of me and really wanted to support me there, like, was super, super sweet.
Of course.
Yeah.
I am so proud of you. And I'm glad that I made part of your live podcast. Literally ran, guys. Our cabin was from the other side of the camp. It was a big campsite.
Yeah.
I had to find out where you guys were recording the podcast and run there. And it was cold that day too.
It was, yeah. It was. And so from there, we started this journey to Bali. And some of you guys asked like questions about, the travel and what that looked like time-wise. And you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but we flew from Montreal to Vancouver for a layover. And that was about 5.5 hours. Then Vancouver to Brisbane, Australia, which was like 15 hours. Then from Brisbane to Despenzar in Bali, which was like another 6 hours. So I didn't even keep track of those numbers just now. I don't know how to add that up correctly, but it's a lot of hours.
I think it was like 26 hours with our layover. And mind you, we go from Montreal time zone to Vancouver, West Coast, then Vancouver to Australia. That's like, we're skipping a day. And then between Australia and Bali, Indonesia, that's another time zone.
Yeah,
so
we're time
jet
traveled.
lagged. Yeah, we're jet lagged. We're hungry. We're tired.
Oh, and of course, I mean, you want to make sure that you're like dressed comfortably, like especially for us women when we're traveling. Sometimes like wearing bras can be incredibly uncomfortable. And thankfully, I actually was wearing my Les Mystere bra on our flights, and it was comfortable. It looked good. It felt great. I didn't feel like I was sacrificing, having a sexy bra for it to actually fit good. Like I had both, and it was super comfortable. But I love their products because they actually offer sizes A through H, so they're super accessible. And you guys can purchase them like almost anywhere: Bloomingdale's, Dillard's, Saks. If you're getting busy before your travel and don't have a lot of time to go in somewhere, you can do a Skype fitting, which is super helpful. And special funness for you guys, 50 of you guys can get a free Le Mystère cosmetic bag with your purchase. So if you go to lemystère.com/gift, add the bag to your cart, add your other purchases, and then use promo code Taylor, you can knock down the price of your bag to $0. That's lemystère.com/gift and promo code Taylor. So make sure that you're wearing a comfortable bra and your travel will be comfortable. And you wanted to tell the story about before we left?
So here I am. I got invited to this trip to Bali, and which is crazy. So, when you keep hearing people say, manifest what you want, put it out to the universe. Well, Taylor and I kept talking about Bali would be so fun. Bali would be an amazing trip.
Well, first we were like, maybe we'll go to Europe because we'll be in Toronto for the event, and then I'll go to Montreal and see, your home and your apartment and everything. And then maybe from there, maybe we go somewhere. And Bali was on the list.
Bali was on it. We had mentioned Bali. So I was contacting a few agencies to see if we can make a trip to Europe. We never really got a definite answer. Until someone had reached out about Bali. Vamped Tours reached out about Bali. And so Taylor and I ended up going to Bali together. But wait, there was the point of the story.
Well, you want to tell about Wednesday versus Thursday? Yes. Vanessa I love this story as well, but it's so painful for the victim of this story.
And I mean, listen, I'm friends with the victim of the story. So I'm not laughing at the victim. I'm laughing with the victim. Yes. So we get back to Montreal on the Monday.
On Sunday.
On Sunday?
Yeah, we got back on Sunday.
On Sunday evening. And I had a doctor's appointment on Wednesday. I had a bunch of paperwork to do for Monday and Tuesday. Monday, we were kind of tired. I don't think we did anything, right? We stayed mostly indoors. Yeah. So Taylor didn't really get to see much of Montreal on Monday. And so we're like, okay, we're going to Bali for 6 days for work with this company called Vamped Tours. Why don't we extend our trip, since it's a 26-hour flight? Why don't we extend our trip an extra 5-6 days? We agreed to do that. Call the airline or call the agency.
And the whole time we're like, we leave Thursday the 12th or the 13th or whatever it was.
Right.
We were like, we leave on Thursday.
We're leaving on Thursday. So we called the agency and we're like, okay, listen, we want to extend our trip to go to come back from Indonesia. They're like, oh, okay. So are you talking about the trip that leaves on Wednesday, September 6th? When was
12th.
It? September 12th. And I look at Taylor and we just start cracking up. Taylor falls off my chair, literally pees in her pants and runs to the bathroom. Why were we laughing? No joke, guys. 5 minutes before that call, Taylor and her romantic interest from camp had just decided to get together in Ottawa.
In Montreal.
Yeah.
He had just booked us an Airbnb in Montreal, had sold his concert tickets.
Oh, he was coming into town. Right. So he was coming into town, got an Airbnb, sold his concert tickets, and was coming to visit Taylor in Montreal
on
from
Wednesday.
Ottawa on Wednesday, September 12th. So I felt back. So I'm like, whoa, how did I not know that we were leaving on Wednesday and not Thursday?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get this all sorted out to make sure that Taylor gets a flight back to Portland and I get a flight back to Montreal. In the meantime, she's calling the man from camp guy.
Fireman. He's really, actually, we should just call him Fireman because he built us a fire. He built
a really
great
good fire. I have it on video.
Yeah.
And I have their first encounter on video too.
Okay.
Crazy. That was so random. That's crazy. How do I have that? That's insane.
I don't know.
Okay. So while I'm trying to sort this out, she's calling Fireman and trying to apologize for my mistake.
I'm sorry, that's a bad nickname. actually hearing it, I'm like, nope, that doesn't sound
so
good.
let's call him Camp Man.
Okay.
Camp Man?
Camp Man.
And I'm messaging Camp Man, like, apologizing, sending him, like, Justin Bieber and my Is It Too Late to Say I'm Sorry lyrics. I actually felt really bad, but it was so funny at the same time because it was such an innocent mistake.
Well, and I want to point out, too, that, like, I thought about this, like, literally about an hour after processing what actually happened, that, like, with a lot of other girlfriends of mine, that whole interaction could have gone so differently. Like, you had kind of been in charge of, like, the travel. Like, I was kind of an add-on to the trip. And so it's like you had the flight information, and, like, we could have both looked at each other in that moment, and we could have been, like, pissed. Like, I could have been, like, so pissed at you, and, like, it could have been a really, like, negative energy space. But the fact that, like, there was no blaming on either end, and it was just like, holy shit, well, that would have been terrible. Like, and the fact that we just both laughed at it together, to me, like, said a lot about our friendship and, like, how we feel about each other.
Yeah. I mean, it was innocent, right? And
yeah, absolutely. But I think that, like, in many other circumstances, that could have gone really bad.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. But it didn't. And it all ended up working out, actually. You ended up working out.
Vanessa? Vanessa?
I mean,
she wants to tell you guys all about my dating right now.
So it ended up working out because Taylor ended up going to Ottawa, and she got to see the capital of Canada, guys.
Parliament.
She saw Parliament.
Yeah. It was really beautiful. Honestly, I loved the city.
Ottawa is pretty. It's pretty. It's clean. It's safe. It's quiet. It's boring.
No.
It's boring.
I mean, not in my experience, but...
Right, but if you live there, it's boring. It's a little...
Sure.
I mean, unless you're married with kids, it's great. But I went to school there, and then once everyone went back, once we all graduated and everyone went back to their hometowns, I was ready to come back to Montreal because it was just quiet. But it is beautiful, and I'm glad it worked out. So
it did work out. I mean, for me, it was a lot because it was. I did a 2-hour train ride to Ottawa, and then for a night, and then came back, and then got ready to go to Bali. So it was like not only the 26 hours of travel, but also like a 2-hour train ride on top of that.
Yeah. No, it was a lot.
But it was definitely worth it. It was a good time. He's a wonderful human. But to talk about Bali now and not my dating anymore, we have some questions about our Bali trip. Any stories that you can remember about just the actual travel getting there itself?
Yeah, so I want to give a little suggestion.
Yeah.
We flew into from Vancouver to Brisbane, Australia. We were flying in economy class. Now, if you're able to save money, buy yourself the economy class ticket. If you're able to save up like $1,000 to $2,000 and splurge a little bit on a first class ticket for a 15-hour flight or 13-hour flight, guys, do it. Do it when you're at the counter. Ask if there's a seat available. There's not many first class seats. I think there was like maybe like 20 seats, and they're sold out. Luckily, the person that was flying into Brisbane didn't make their flight, so there was one seat left, and I got it.
I'm giving salty because then the whole time afterwards.
Were you going to buy it? Were you going to buy it?
I wanted us to stick together, V.
Girl, I was like, yo, I need my sleep.
But no, I literally
slept 13 hours.
The reason I was so salty about it was because afterwards she would not shut up about, oh, I slept so well. Oh, I feel so great. And I'm like, yeah, my back is killing me. And that was a long ass flight. I'm glad you enjoyed yours. She's like, oh yeah, they gave me like so many meals, and I was like, yeah, they gave us shit for food, so cool. But no, for that I would not have spent the money to upgrade. But on the way back home, I would have. Because then, like, you kind of know, like, for me going into it, I was like, I don't really know what this is going to be like. So, like, let's see just how shitty it is. And then if it is something that I'm like, no, I definitely need to do first class. But I was also happy that you were able to get your rest, because then I was able to be a little bit out of it and, like, could rely on you to kind of, like, get us going where we needed to be going a little.
No, that was one thing. I never fly first class. Like, I could sleep anywhere, but for that long, especially on our way back, that's when I felt it. You slept quite a bit on the way back from Australia to Vancouver. Australia, Vancouver.
From Bali to Australia, I was out. I slept real hard on that one.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
And then
I did not sleep.
Yeah. One of the things I did like little eye gels for a bit and watched a bunch of movies. And one thing that really saved me, not only in like traveling around Bali, but then also just the super long flights, was doing the gravel, the ginger lozenges.
Oh yeah. I introduced you to those.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, that's Canadian. That's a Canadian brand for my Americanos.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Gravel. Yeah. So basically Dramamine is super drowsy. I don't know if they make it. Yeah, I don't know if I took that on my first date with Nick, and I was out for like 2 days because I took like 2 pills. So if you're flying, definitely either you can actually just chew on ginger.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. Usually those ginger chews that you have, I have like a different brand of it that I usually travel with, and for whatever reason had brain farted on it. But yeah, chewing the ginger both in like the long flights and in the cars in Bali was super helpful.
Yeah. And also you want to avoid getting sick. You're traveling a lot. Your immune system probably will get shot. So buy Purell wipes and wipe down. And I don't care. I get looked at all the time. I just flew in from New York City, 45-minute flight. I'm wiping down the headrest. Yeah. I'm wiping down the armrest.
Literally as soon as we sat down in any flight, Vanessa was like, where's the wet ones? Do you have the wipes?
Yeah. I'm not touching. Yeah. Like, I'm not touching anything.
I definitely made sure to have emergency with me. So I took a bunch of that. And I also use this it's like a homeopathic cold medicine. It's called Cold Cam. And it was called something else in Canada, and I can't remember the name of it, but definitely, and my elderberry immune lozenges, which was also super, super helpful. So just make sure to have lots of vitamins and things to help with your immune system while you travel, especially when it's a super long flight like that.
Absolutely. And make sure to bring activated charcoal or Pepto-Bismol or
Imodium.
the grapefruit seed extract. Grapefruit seed extract.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to take a mini break here just to point out the fact that I am still actually unpacking from this trip. But as I'm unpacking, I'm getting rid of things that I no longer need or that I've had, and I'm just I'm not actually wearing this. It's so cute, but I just have too many things, and it's about time that I get rid of some of them. So I'm actually using Poshmark, which is a free app. You can download it. It has tons of brands to shop from, and they're great deals. So you can find some really good bargains on there. It's such an easy way to buy and sell items. I've been going through today and taking photos of everything, and it's incredibly easy, much easier than I thought going into it. Shipping is super easy for both the seller and the buyer. There's super fast shipping. So if you guys see some things on my page that you guys like, I will get it to you ASAP. And lucky you guys, as listeners of the show, you get $5 off your first purchase. So just enter the referral code TaylorNolan5 when you sign up. That's referral code TaylorNolan5. And I'm going to keep on unpacking from this trip and hopefully lighten up my closet. But it was a super great trip. I'm really glad that we went. Someone asked if either one of us has ever done a major trip on our own. I don't know. Have you?
Not major. I remember the first time I traveled by myself all the time. Like, I love taking flights by myself.
Yeah.
Obviously the longest one is from Montreal to LA, which is like a 6-hour flight. I did that quite a bit.
But like a major trip, like overseas.
No.
Which I guess,
no, yeah. Never. Unless I wouldn't be opposed to it unless I knew there was someone I was going to meet in that country. But as a female, I don't feel 100% comfortable traveling to a foreign country, especially if I don't speak the language or if I don't know anyone or have an emergency contact there. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it alone.
Yeah, so I haven't either, but my dear, dear, dear friend and chosen sister, Casey has, and she did 3 months by herself, traveling all around Southeast Asia, and then actually moved to Germany by herself.
Oh, I don't think she moved out by herself. I thought she had a man.
Yep. Well, she found a man out there.
Damn, is that where we gotta go?
I don't know. He's from Georgia, though. So I'm like, wait, you moved to Germany and now we're dating a guy from Georgia? But she's absolutely amazing, and I love her to pieces. Like, my friendship with you reminds me a lot of my friendship with her. So I really hope you guys get to meet one day. But going to have Casey on an episode to talk about being, a single woman traveling overseas alone and doing a major trip like that. So if you guys are curious about that kind of stuff, definitely tune into her episode, which we'll hopefully have sometime soon in the near future. But another question that people asked was, what was the scariest, nerve-wracking thing to have happen to us during our travels?
Okay. Well, the scariest and most nerve-wracking thing, before the travel, we're both really big thinkers.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it helps you when I'm overthinking and you get to calm me down. So before the trip, there was a massive earthquake that happened in an island in Lombok in Indonesia, which is an island not far from Bali. And I was worried because I'm like, I don't know if we should go, like we should check the weather conditions and if there's any warnings for travel. So we were going back and forth on whether or not we should do it and if we should stay longer, if we should even go at all. So that was, I think, for me, the most nerve-wracking part of the trip is the anxiety of the unknown, of not knowing what the weather conditions were going to be like. Because literally the day after we landed, there was a massive earthquake that hit Bali.
The day after we landed?
The day after or two, yeah.
The day after we landed, there was an earthquake?
The day after we landed back in Montreal, back home.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, on our return. So I think...
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Huge.
Dang.
Like, I think like thousands of people died and it was all over the news.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the travel anxiety piece, because a lot of people asked about that, about if we experience travel anxiety and what triggers it. And we talked a little bit about it on our Instagram, just about like the anxiety that we had about traveling. And I think a large part of what triggers travel anxiety is the unknown, is the fear of like not knowing what it's going to look like, what's going to happen, what if things go wrong, what if you miss a flight. And we were faced with that twice. And not that any of our flights were delayed or anything like that, which I know is like a fear people have sometimes too, but all our flights were on time. It was just us getting there. And the first
in
flight,
the wrong Uber.
Let me tell you, the amount of sass and like just pure attitude you gave this Uber driver. I wish I could have recorded the whole thing.
I was so frustrated because I live right next to the highway, the exit to the airport. And this dude decides to take a different way. And we literally get stuck downtown Montreal. And anyone who's from Montreal knows how terrible traffic is midday. I'm like, we're never going to get there. And the app said we're going to get there in 20 minutes. I'm like, no, we're going to get there in an hour. We're lucky we're going to get there in an hour. So,
and it was definitely like a moment where I wish people could see your face.
Hold on. Well, I was also triggered because before I left, I had these massive rashes on my face. Okay.
We were honestly such a hot mess before this trip. I don't even know how we managed to pull it together.
Oh my gosh. Remember how bad my face was? I thought my face was going to scar. I had to go get facial cortisone. Oh.
It was quite an adventure. But I remember as we were dealing with like that part of travel anxiety of like, are we going to make it? Like, you know, I remember we were in that dynamic where like you had high anxiety and I was able to like kind of calm you down. And I was like, we're going to make it to the airport on time. It's going to be okay. None of this is in our control right now. I was like, we'll get there when we get there and we'll figure things out from there. And then it was like, after 30 minutes of that, then I started to feel it set in. And I was like, shit. I was like, we can't both be freaking out at the same time. Like, pull it together, Taylor. And I was like, okay, well, what happens if we don't make this flight? Like, then who do we contact? Like, what do we do? And then I was starting to like, you know, process those logistics in my head. Yeah, I was like, we can't both be like having panic attacks at the same time.
I was so upset. So, and then our second... Oh yeah. Going back to Vancouver, we're like, oh, we're going to grab something to eat. And I kept looking back. I'm like, hey, they haven't started boarding yet. That's so weird.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There weren't really people over there. Our flight was not supposed to have departed for another like 40 minutes.
Right. So I was on Instagram and I was I posted something about like leaving Bali or something. And then someone messaged me saying, hey, Vanessa, I'm on your flight and they keep calling out your name to check in at the gate. So I started freaking out. So we ran to our gate and they're like, oh yeah, we just needed to like see, just the pre-board stuff. So we're like, okay, cool. We got time. So we start walking around. I go to the bathroom, you know, like whatever. We go start buying stuff.
Chick gets a massage.
I get a massage. We go grab something to eat. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's boarding time. And I remember you're like, no, they haven't boarded yet. And I was like, but
because there was no one over there. Like we could see our gate from where we were, and I was like, no one's even over there. Like usually, you know, you see everyone line up, and you're like, oh god, it's so annoying. Why is everyone lining up? And nothing was happening. So I was like, no, we're fine.
Yeah,
but turns out everyone had already boarded.
Yeah, until the agent comes up to our table at the restaurant and was like, girls, we've been calling you. We're done the boarding.
They were like, if you're getting on this flight, you're going to need to run.
The last
we were like,
two.
What?
Mm-hmm. The last two bozos walking into that. And I don't know how many people there were on that flight. It was hundreds of people on that flight. We were the last.
Hundreds?
Girl.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I was bad with numbers. You're supposed to be the good one.
No. Okay. There had to be 100 something. 200 people at least. There's three sections.
I don't know.
There's 3 sections of the flight. First class.
You're right.
Economy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You are the good one with numbers.
Yeah.
This was another way where we balanced each other out. Like one of my areas of anxiety is like, I'm not good with numbers. And so, you know, in Bali, they use rupees. And I'm like, I don't know how to convert and like the math, just like when I'm already trying to figure out logistics of like driving and how we get from this point to this point, like doing all of that processing all in one, like just I would have like exploded. And so thankfully, like you kind of handled like the money piece, and that was like one way that I think we were able to help each other out with our travel anxiety. Cause I think like maybe communicating with people would have stressed you out. And like, so I kind of communicated with some of the people and you were able to like do the math. And that was a good way, I think, that we kind of balanced each other out. And it happened in like a very natural kind of way of like us just naturally delegating and like doing what comes easiest for one person and like actually expressing that too. Like I'm sure I annoyed the shit out of you with how many times I was like, wait, so how many?
No, girl, I loved it. I felt so smart every time. I was like, and I kept explaining it to you. I'm like, this and this makes 100. And you're like, I'm like, all right, just give me your money.
Nothing was getting through.
But it all makes sense. And it wasn't like an expectation of each other. It just, we understood what each other's roles were to make the trip less stressful. And I trusted that you were going to get, you know, the driver. I trusted that you were going to pick the right Airbnbs.
Not at first.
Not at first. Not at first. Let me tell you.
Not at first.
The second one.
The second one, it was a fun story. Okay. So the first one, let's start with this. And first I want to say too, like maybe if you're traveling with a friend who like you don't know super well, that like you do maybe communicate ahead of time of like what things you think you'll be able to like handle, and like, you know, kind of delegating of some tasks ahead of time could be helpful.
That and how much, what each other's budget is. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to, at one point, I think you mentioned hostel. I was like, nope, I'd rather pay for something.
Because that's just like what people like say, you know, like when I picture like traveling, like people have like all kinds of fun, cool stories about being in hostels. And I'm
know.
Like, yeah, if I'm going to like go travel, then like, yeah, I want to meet people and like maybe you do a hostel. Like, isn't that like what people do? Like, I have no clue.
I think like that's what people do when they're right off of college and they take a year off and they start traveling and they don't have the money to afford.
Kit is 30. I'm not going to throw him under
the bus. Don't expose him like
that. But no, Kit stays in hostels when he travels.
Oh, really?
And it's more like,
I don't know. For me, safety, and we spoke about this, even Airbnb, safety is my number one top priority. It could be like the dingiest place, but if it's like 5-star safety, I'd rather stay there.
At times it can be maybe a little irrational.
No, not in a foreign country. No, not when you're 26 hours away from your medical system. No.
Yes. So, girlies, you got health insurance?
Girl, you gotta wait like 9 days before you get checked. You're like dying in the waiting room.
So to start off, you know, we stayed with Vamped for the first 6 days, and then we were kind of on our own the next 5 or maybe 6 days, and literally had no like. The last day we were in the hotel, we still had no clue where we were going to be staying, and our driver was picking us up at noon, and it literally was not until like 12:15. Like he was waiting for us, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to get you the address in like a minute." Where I remember this was the only time during our travels where I felt like I'm going to murder this bitch.
I was still going around asking people like, hey guys, like, where do you think is the best spot to stay in Ubud?
Where literally you had made a comment about like Airbnbs aren't safe. Like we're not staying in an Airbnb. Well, and it was so matter of fact. It was so matter of fact and like all or nothing that I was like, what?
Well, hold on. This is also because a friend of mine who lived there for 6 months told me, don't do it. I know someone that stayed at an Airbnb and they got robbed. And I'm like, I got my computer with me. I got my cell phone. If I lose both of those things, how will I communicate with my passport? Like, that's my number one top priority. So I just didn't want to have to compromise my safety for my money.
Yes. Totally agree. And this is where like we kind of went back and forth a little bit about like we can find Airbnbs that are safe and like maybe we do hotels and what do we do? And then literally as we're waiting for the car, you're like going up to other guests in the hotel like, oh, so where have you stayed? And he's like, oh yeah, I stayed at this beautiful Airbnb. And then you're like, oh, so Airbnbs are safe. And then we found an Airbnb and went there, and it was a good experience.
And I was very happy with that decision, and I thanked you for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I remember we had a moment where I was like, "Thank you for trusting me. Like, I'm glad we're doing this, and I think it will be a good time." It was a really good location. Our host also did like meditations, and so we did a meditation with her. And do you want to share like your takeaway from that experience? It was like a sound movement meditation where we like aligned our chakras.
Girl, I loved it. I love being loud. So like you have to basically open up your chakra. We have 7 chakras. So basically starting from your pelvis all the way to the top of your head. And you have to make these sounds like, oh.
Each chakra.
Yeah, each chakra.
Each chakra has a sound and a color.
And I was going all out. I'm going to open up these chakras. Because at first she came to see if our chakras were in line. And she checks Taylor and she's like, oh yeah, you're pretty good. She checks me and I'm way out of line. So I'm like, I really got to work on these chakras to make sure. So I'm like really voicing, really getting into it. And then at one point she's like, feel your aura around you. I don't know if it's the vibration.
At the very end.
I don't know if it's if it's due to the vibrations of the sounds that you're making with your mouth, and like it vibrates throughout your body. But everything around us, there's vibrations everywhere around us. Mm-hmm. So I literally felt like, I remember having my eyes closed, and this was after we're done doing the meditation. Was maybe like an hour and a half, and I remember opening up my arms and feeling my aura and my energy around me. And I pictured a rainbow of colors, because every chakra is a different color. I pictured a rainbow of colors around me. And I just felt like I was able to touch this, like, I can't explain it. Like, I felt like like hula hoops were around me, and I was able to touch those hula hoops around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, it was, at first, I was like, I felt really centered in it. And then as we started going, it was kind of like, okay, this is getting a little out of my comfort zone. And I remember there was like a split second where like we looked at each other, and I just felt like, we're in this. And I was like, we're doing it. And it was kind of like a, here we go. And it was really like refreshing to kind of like surrender to any of those like judgments that you might have about yourself or about like what this experience could be. And just really like being there. And even at the end, talking about the aura, like that was a very sensational experience. Like you literally could feel as if there was a aura, a space around you. You know, your like gravitational pull was like around you, and it was a very like, I want to say almost like orgasmic experience, and like a very awakening. Like I felt very powerful afterwards. I felt very like I'm ready to take on anything. And I spoke to a girlfriend here in Seattle who does like a chakra meditation like every morning, and she was like, it's incredible.
She does it the same way that
yeah, she does like the breathing, like the
oh, that I almost fainted. I was like, okay, why do we have 7 chakras right now? I wish you only had 1. By the time I got to the 7th, I was like, dead.
Yes, I definitely had to like stop and like take a few gulps to like, you know, get my throat wet again, because it was very drying. But no, that was like one of my favorite experiences of Bali, was doing that chakra meditation. And then we got, of the 7 chakras, our heart chakra is one that speaks to both of us a lot. And so we got like matching chakra heart bracelets, which I'm still wearing mine.
I don't wear it when I shower. So
I still wear it.
Have you showered since I was kidding?
Yes, I have. Thank you very much. Haven't left the apartment very much, but I have showered.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was an amazing experience, because the first 6 days we were there, we're staying in 5-star resorts, which were beautiful. I mean, stunning. Yes. The staff was amazing. The food was amazing. But at one point, we just wanted to experience the culture. And so I am glad that we stayed at that Airbnb. And I thank you again for convincing me and for choosing a safe location.
And thank you for trusting me.
And we wanted to do that meditation. So I'm glad that was checked off of our bucket list.
Yeah. And it's funny, one of the questions someone asked me was Vanessa a good roommate? And yes, she was. She's a wonderful, wonderful roommate. Even the last night, I had a really bad migraine and ended up getting sick. And if you guys listened to my episode with Michael Landsberg, the live podcast from Fireside, you heard us bond over our phobia of throwing up. And this was one of those times, first time in several years, where I was sick, and was so incredibly thankful to have you there with me. And like, I don't know that I would have felt as like okay about it. Like, I feel like I handled it fairly well, even though internally I was like freaking out about it, thinking I was gonna die. But just your like calming presence around it all, like I felt like I was gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think it was. I can relate to the phobia of vomiting, because that's one thing. And I expressed this to you while you were sick. I'm like, you're doing really well. You were calm and you were cool. I would have been running around the couch, like freaking out and crying and trying to distract myself from the feeling of having to vomit. But I get migraines quite often. So I knew exactly what you were going through. I knew what helps. I knew like the trigger points and where you should be massaging yourself. So I totally empathize. And I was there for you in a way that I knew you would have been there for me too.
Yeah. And it was, before I kind of get into like what our last, night and morning was like, was there anything else from in between the trip that you want to share or?
Oh, well, sunset in Seminyak was the most magical, breathtaking experiences. And I actually just finished doing a podcast with Dean and Jared, and they're like, where would you go on a first date? I'm like, honestly, I would go back to Seminyak so I can experience that sunset with someone I love. I mean, I love you, but I wanted to make out with someone in the process. There was someone who was like playing the saxophone live, and just the atmosphere was just so incredible. And I think I'm a big planner. And for the first time, I remember my sister was messaging me asking, where are you guys staying next? And I'm like, I don't know. We're checking out of this Airbnb, not knowing where we're going next. And she's like, oh, you're just living the YOLO life. I'm like, that's so not me, but I actually didn't care. I was like, we'll end up somewhere and we'll be happy with it. We're in a safe country. We're with each other. We're going to have fun regardless. And I think for the first time, I kind of let go of the idea of controlling.
And that's like, I think the biggest thing that travel can teach you. It's the biggest challenge for me in letting go of control. Like the minute that I leave my house for a trip, I'm like, okay, I surrender to the universe. I will do my best and we will see where this goes. And like, regardless of what happens, it'll be okay. I mean, leaving, I had to take Lily to my parents in Oregon, and leaving Oregon, my flight to New York was booked wrong. It was booked out of Portland, Maine. And I'm literally on my way to the freaking airport trying to check in for my flight. And I'm like, why isn't this working? And then I'm like, oh my God, they booked this out of Maine, not Oregon. And so then I'm like, oh, my whole travel is ruined. Like, I'm not going to make it to Toronto, which means I'm not going to make it to Montreal, which means I'm not going to make it to Bali, like all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this step by step. We're going to figure it out. The biggest challenge in letting go of control, traveling, 100%. But I'm so glad that you got to experience the sunset, and I'm so glad that we did kind of just go with like the flow of it all, you know, like. And
I think as much as I was posting on social media, I realized I was never really posting myself on social media. I was posting about my surroundings or food and like. And then when
the food there was wonderful.
It really was. And when I got back to Montreal, I was like, oh man, now I have to get back to putting myself on video on Instagram again. So it was nice to disconnect in that sense, as much as we were still on our social media. It wasn't, I didn't feel like the need to be posting myself on it.
Yeah. Someone asked, does traveling to beautiful places like Bali make you want to live abroad? And where do we want to travel to next?
Okay. Since high school, I always said, I love Montreal. Montreal's my hometown. I think this is where I'll eventually buy a house and kind of make this home semi-permanently. But I would love to be able to have a home here and also travel with my kids and my husband for maybe the first 5 years of their life, because that's when they're in pre-K or kindergarten. And I want my kids to be able to experience different culture and different languages. When we were,
you don't want to save that for when they're able to like really like take it in when they're a little bit older. I mean,
at that point, yeah, in university they can go off and like try. They can go to university and do that. But I think when you're young, your brain is a sponge, right? And you can learn many valuable things. If you think about psychology. Things that were triggered right now in our lives dates back to things that happened to us in the first 5 years of our childhood.
True. So Freudian of you.
I mean, I read books.
I just love that you're like, when you think about psychology.
No, it's true. If you think about like things that we're triggered by now, it goes back to like having to dig up things that happened to us in our past that we're not even aware of, but it has happened to us and it shaped us and molded us into that person. So when we were in Bali, we actually went to Kol Farm. And
my favorite.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about that. Yeah, that was my favorite part of my experience.
And right next door, so basically the co-founder of Kol Farm, his father created the Green School, which is right next door. And it's a school, it's made out of bamboo, and it's based, I think it's like experiential learning.
Experiential, hands-on
learning. They
no standardized testing, none of that.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's so cool. I would love to be able to teach somewhere like this or have my kids learn about this form of education. So I would live abroad. I'm not opposed to it. My next travel, I would love, we had a layover in Australia, and I was like, oh my God, I just want to be here a little bit longer. So definitely Australia. I would love to visit that next.
Yeah. Just quickly on the farm, before we wrap up, the farm was the Kol farm, and they were absolutely amazing. And I would love to, someone did ask like, what part of Bali do you miss the most? And like, for me, it was the farm and the people I met at the farm, who were just really wonderful. And, we ended up having a double date one night with the guys.
Stop! Hold on. It wasn't actually a double date. I mean, I guess it was a double date. It was a double date, Vanessa. That's okay. It was a double date. And we had a fun time. We actually rode on scooters, which like that was so
we
fun.
didn't think we were going to do, but that's a big thing that people do in Bali. And so my guy that I went on a date with, he has lived there for 2 years. And so I like trusted him being on the scooter. But yeah, the people at the farm, again, like a very, very reminiscent of the experience at Fireside, and just feeling like really connected to people. And traveling to next, don't we have a potential trip to Milan coming up next month?
Potential trip to Milan, I'm guessing either next month or the month after. But yeah, that's we're looking into that. So Italy's always very exciting. Will it be your first time in Italy?
It will.
What?
It will. This has been like my first actual major big travel trip. And that's also why like I'm so happy and so thankful that I was able to share it with you, and that I was able to take in all those experiences, but also like it's an experience I'll always look back on, that like, I got to go on this like amazing girls trip, and like it brought us so much closer together.
So much closer.
And it just blows my mind like how different friendships can be. Like I have I would say 3 other girlfriends where I feel like it's a similar dynamic with me and you, where I can just 100% be myself. We can be in the same room. We can poop right in front of each other.
I mean, we do. We shower in front of each other.
We can shower right in front of each other. And like we can FaceTime for like 5 hours out in one day and still be like, what are you doing?
Yep.
And to me, that just like, I always try to make sure that I don't ever take that for granted. And it always is really reflected to me, like when I hang out with a friend that maybe I'm not as close with, that I'm like, oh wow, like, you know, that's kind of sucks. I feel like holding my fart right now. Like
it's never a good idea, especially when you're flying. Let me tell you guys, Taylor did not.
Neither did you.
You're right. But I'm telling you, like anyone who's traveling, guys, do not hold it in. That's terrible.
That was actually one of you guys DM'd me when I was asking about like, how do we handle long flights? And someone was legit. They were like, I know it might be TMI, but like, I really encourage you, don't hold in your farts on those long planes, because it can be really dangerous. And like, you know, you need to let it out. And I was like, oh, don't worry. I'm not going to try to hold it in.
This person is a genius. Yep. And can definitely be part of our social group of friends.
Yes, 100%. But yeah, great advice. Don't hold in your farts. And this is also why the last episode was not getting aired. So we should wrap it up now before we go too far into poop.
Like this too. We were doing so well.
Well, yeah, I'm glad we finally got to kind of debrief on our, like, that was like 3.5 weeks of traveling together.
And more to come.
My goodness.
More to come.
So excited. I'm like, I miss you.
I know. Well, I got to come to Seattle. And you got to actually spend more time in Montreal.
I do. Well, and I'll be in Toronto, but you won't be there.
I'll be in Vegas.
Well, we'll see each other soon-ish, hopefully. If not, we'll just keep on FaceTiming each other
every day. 5 times a day. Works for me.
Yes. But you guys should check out Vanessa on her pod where she talks about how she sucks at dating.
But I feel like I'm getting a little bit better.
You are.
Yeah.
You are.
I've
seen so much growth in you just even like this last month.
I know.
It's amazing.
Crazy. Even this last weekend, I'm like, who am I?
Yeah.
It's really nice. I feel like a little bit of maturity has developed within me.
Mm-hmm.
But this can be for an entire other episode.
Yes. We need a business chat.
Yeah, we do.
To have like a girl chat pod.
I mean, should Tay and I have like fun?
Should we have fun? The Taynessa pod.
The Taynessa pod? So much to talk about.
I know, right? We should let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Where were we? They kept saying that at camp.
At camp, yeah, this guy he kept making plugs for
let's talk about it,
guys. Let's talk about it. And he had no idea that I had a pod that was called Let's Talk About It.
So funny.
And so we were just dying. It was hilarious.
It's so funny.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll chat more. You'll be back on the pod again
100%
at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks again for debriefing on our wonderful travels. You guys can find Vanessa at Help I Suck at Dating and also on the gram, Vanessa Grimaldi 30. Because she's 30 forever.
Yeah, it's because I'm born on the 30th. Vanessa Grimaldi was taken.
Yes. And thank you guys for listening. This episode's a little bit longer, but hopefully you guys enjoyed every minute of it.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. My voice cracked there. Guys.
It's okay. We're all going through puberty. It's all right. I'm breaking out all over my forehead. It's a fun time. But please head on over to iTunes and leave a review and rate us and let me know what you guys are liking about the pod. And I'll be back next week, probably one more travel-themed episode. Hopefully this next one will be with Casey and you guys can hear about traveling solo overseas as a lady. So tune in next week and I hope you guys have a fantastic week. I will talk to you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Babes and Babies, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.